I'm Sally Penny. I'm the founder of Women in the Law UK. So let's get started. We've got Sarah Deacon from Wesleyan, and Sarah will tell you who she is in a moment, but Wesleyan are a great partners of ours, of Women in the Law, but actually they're the chosen kind of advisors for the Law Society. And so it's great that Sarah's given up her time to give us her expertise, and I've certainly got two great questions I want to ask when we get going.
So thank you for joining today. What I want to cover off really is effective financial management for female lawyers. Something that I'm regularly talking to Sally about, but also regularly talking to women like yourselves about financial management, but also the impact that this has from a legal perspective. Really focusing on sort of things like the gender pay gap, careers break, and the impacts that these have on you. So what I want to cover off today, I guess, is 5 ways that gender affects women's finances, specific issues affecting female lawyers' finances, and some examples of how Wesleyan can help. And I guess be interesting just at the beginning to introduce myself and also to introduce Wesleyan to you for those of you that don't know us already. So my name's Sarah Deacon, and I lead the team of financial consultants at Wesleyan who provide advice specifically for lawyers. So my team, a team of 11 across the country, and they provide advice day in, day out to people in your profession. Wesleyan focuses specifically on the legal profession as well. So Wesleyan is a financial services organisation set up originally in 1841 by a group of doctors who pooled their money together in times of hardship. Couldn't be more important now with what's obviously going on in the wider economy and the wider world. But my team are specially trained in providing advice and working with legal professionals, as I said. Therefore, they're fully trained to understand your financial needs and tailor advice accordingly. We have an advisory board who are made up of eminent professionals within the legal space. So those of you may know Lucy Scott Moncrief. She's one of our members that are on our advisory board, and I would love in the future to have Sally on our advisory board also. We are, as Sally said, strategic partners with the Law Society. So what that means, the Law Society of England and Wales have chosen Wesleyan to be a strategic partner just because of the way that we work, the way we operate, and obviously the service that we provide to our members. Okay. We also know, and more importantly, I guess it's coming to the forefront of our minds right now, is that we talk a lot about physical and mental well-being, but I also spend my day talking to people about financial well-being as well. Absolutely fundamental and really, really important. So as I said, Wesleyan, here to support you. We've been around for 175 years. We're very, very financially strong, and we're seeing this more so at the moment. But we've weathered the 2 world wars, the credit crunch of 2008, and we will weather the COVID-19 situation as well. As I mentioned, we've got our advisory board. We've got about 360 financial consultants across the country. They provide advice to doctors, dentists, GPs, teachers, and lawyers. And each financial consultant is a specialist in their segment. So if you were to sit down with a financial consultant today, they would be specially trained in providing advice specifically to lawyers. So they understand your career progression right the way through from university to becoming a partner, loving the man in the background, to becoming a partner, to becoming an associate or barrister, whatever your career path may be. Wesleyan is also a mutual organisation. So what that means is we have no shareholders to pay. So we actually can look after our members day to day. And that comes back to the question I want to ask you all at the end. And we also have corporate social responsibility. So at the moment, we're just looking at those firms, or those charities, that we can support. We're about to give £5,000 charitable donation to Law Care. Many of you will know Law Care and may even in the future need their services. Fantastic charity that provide mental health and wellbeing. We're also giving a £10,000 charitable donation to Law Works, who are a pro bono organisation. And of course, clearly, we've given a £5,000 donation to the Spinal Injuries Association, which some of you may get involved with in your day-to-day work. So really proud of our mutuality and really proud of our corporate social responsibility. We are all about you as well. So as I said, advice-led specialists, got some real strengths and success across the business. And we have this real insight and understanding of our customers, which hopefully I'll highlight now, just going through in terms of the 5 sort of key areas. So in terms of the gender pay gap, how does this impact you working within the legal profession? Well, we know there are about 70,000 female solicitors with practicing certificates, and we know that female solicitors have been outnumbering men since 2017. Yet we do know that full-time legal professionals still earn 24% less than men. Okay, and a Law Society report has found that over 60% of respondents were aware of a gender pay gap within their organisation, but only 16% saw steps being taken to address this. And again, at the end, I'd really welcome some communication from you and some feedback in terms of this and how this is impacting you in your day-to-day. So we know that obviously gender pay gap reporting requirements in 2017 in the organisations with 250 plus relevant employees have to report it. We also appreciate that the gap in gender pay may be smaller for higher for smaller firms. And we also don't know what the gender pay gap will be for partners, because actually they didn't also have to report. So these are the figures that we've got at the moment, but it could be a lot different. Okay. We also know that there appears to be quite a lot of unconscious bias stopping women rising to the top within the legal profession. Women do make up almost 2/3 of new traineeships in private practice firms, but there are only 30% of partners in private practice who are women. We also know that 52% of respondents to a Law Society survey on women in the law identified perceived unconscious bias as the greatest barrier to women's career progression. Okay. And somebody has commented and said, when we reviewed our appraisal process, we found that significant unconscious bias came out of promotions, and each day women came out at the bottom of the matrix, even though we knew they were often the stronger candidate, and it therefore became clear that the qualities of women were not being recognised. Okay, so again, you may have some feedback and some thoughts on this. We also know that in the main, the majority of women will take career breaks for maternity and paternity, sorry, not paternity, but maternity, and also looking after elderly relatives. We know that 39% of working age mums have taken parental leave compared to just 18% of working age dads. And we also know that working mothers earn 20% less than fathers 10 years after the birth of their last child. And what this obviously means to you and I is that women's longer term finances are impacted by the pay gap too. So obviously your pension contributions will be impacted by career breaks and maternity leave, as will your potential ability to do longer term mortgage borrowing. Okay, so again, in terms of career breaks and just taking that family leave, we know that your longer term earning finances are jeopardised. We also, from that point of view, know on point 4, in terms of closing the pension gap. So pension and retirement planning is absolutely key and fundamental throughout life and throughout your careers. The average pension pot, to include both workplace and private pensions, for women is about £28,900, when you compare that to the average man's pension pot, which is worth £34,500. The gap does widen with age, so for men aged 55 to 64, their pension pot is worth over double that of the average women's. We also know that 52% of women in their late 20s have said that they do not understand enough to make decisions about retirement savings. So when you look at the pension shortfall, when taken together with shifts in family structure, well-being, home ownership and social care systems, we know that this can leave many women exposed if they are not involved in retirement planning. We've just run some seminars actually in conjunction with the Law Society in Birmingham, Manchester and London. It was really interesting listening to women talking about the impact of the pension gap in their finances. Lots of women still leave their decisions down to their husbands, and I still see it and hear it on a daily basis. I'll just check this through with my husband. But also as well, it's just that impact on making sure that you understand what your retirement planning looks like and what your income will be in retirement. And it is never too early to consider planning. Okay. We also know, when we then factor all of this in, that it is really important for women to take financial advice. But we also appreciate and we also know that sometimes women find it difficult to find somebody that they trust to get that financial advice. So I think from my perspective, clearly, as is coming to it from a financial services background, is I absolutely understand this. Still have the sort of prehistoric view of a man turning up in a suit at your door with the briefcase, bringing all of this literature in that potentially might seem a little bit like jargon, maybe doesn't understand, maybe can't empathise, just doesn't have that sort of emotional intelligence. Now, that was perhaps the 80s and 90s. The world has moved on, recruited a much younger level of financial consultants who actually do understand and have wives and sisters and are a bit more sort of modern in that perspective. But of course, it can be difficult to find trustworthy financial advice. So I would say this can never ever be underestimated. The impact of finding trustworthy advice has a great benefit to you in that we know that women are more likely to save than invest. So 2/3 of women will keep their money in cash ISAs. Men, on the other hand, are twice as likely on average to invest in a stocks and shares ISA. So the investment gap is concerning because it does impact your financial stability in later life. And of course, by not doing longer term savings or by not taking advice on your pension, clearly you're missing out on growing in your wealth in the long term. Just to put this into context, if you had £10,000 today and you were investing it in a cash ISA, when we take into consideration the benefits of inflation, and this was in early March, it might change obviously based on the current situation we're in, but 1 year from now, £10,000 based on current inflation could have a buying power of about £9,803. 5 years from now, that £10,000 could have a buying power of about £9,057. And 10 years from now, with £8,203. So sorry, that was 1-5 in 10 years. So the actual buying power of your £10,000 cash investment, which you think you're keeping it safe and secure and not investing it, is actually going down in terms of the amount of buying power that you have. And we also know, in a way, it's almost costing you money to keep money invested in a bank because we're just not getting the rates of interest. Of course, we need to just have that caveat that the value of investments and any income can go down as well as up, which again is just important to have that regular review. Okay, so what can we do about all of this? Well, clearly we can plan. So we can absolutely plan for our career break, going part-time, or really consider having those conversations around when it is you want to have a baby, have a career break, and to really start talking about that as soon as you can. And now, not everybody wants to have children, of course, but those of you who think you do, it's just important to go, okay, I don't know when I'm going to have it, but actually I would like to plan and start considering. Clearly, it's also vitally important that you know your worth and you ask for it. Fundamentally came out of the the money misconceptions events we did in conjunction with the Law Society, which Sally was on the panel, was it's fundamental that we as women have absolute confidence in our own worth and to ask for it. And I think Sally might reiterate this at the end. Learn to negotiate a fair salary. So absolutely go in there with evidence-based research on why you deserve your financial promotion or your promotion, and have that confidence. Get involved in your retirement planning at an early age. I turned 40 last year and it seemed like yesterday when I started my career. Now I've only got 25 years to go before I retire. So absolutely it goes very, very quickly. And also consider investing for the long term. So do look, have a regular review, just invest for that long term rather than short term. Okay, so how can Wesleyan support you? Well, we know that in the world of law and your legal profession, you do have positive career prospects and you do have the ability to earn a good level of income, which does, comfortably and confidently enable you to plan for the future. And of course, these go hand in hand. Now, I've got the caveat, obviously, that the situation at the moment, some of you may be being furloughed, maybe on a reduced earnings. So, of course, I'm well aware of that. But again, in the main, positive career prospects with a good level of income, and it does allow you to plan your future. Okay. Wesleyan can, of course, support you with both your personal and professional goals. We absolutely want to spend time getting to understand you, what's important, what your goals are, and what you want to achieve. And then we will work with you to help you work towards your plan. When we talk to you about financial planning, we talk to you about you, and it's your plan. Okay, so again, things we can do is we can absolutely understand your mortgage needs. So we know and appreciate your career path, your career progression. We know which lenders will be willing to lend based on your, whether you're just gone self-employed, whether you're looking to develop, whether you're a barrister, earnings, etc. So we absolutely understand your mortgage needs, and we know which lenders would be willing and able to lend, and ones that will give maybe higher income multiples because of your profession. We also will provide this advice to you without any cost. So we don't charge any fees for arranging any mortgages or any fees for giving that mortgage advice. We also have access to thousands of deals, many which are not available on the high street. And we can save you time by also looking at any protection needs, any home insurance needs, so you don't have to deal with multiple providers. We can also help protect you and your family. So, for example, at the moment, particularly, it's very, very at the forefront of everybody's minds in protecting their families against long-term illness, long-term sickness. And again, we can do this at a time and a place that best suit you, one-on-one, remotely, via phone, video. We've got that functionality now, but actually we had it before. And we can also do in-firm seminars coming into your firm and offering this sort of service to you and your colleagues. And all meetings are always on a no obligation basis. So that's also really positive. Of course, again, if you want to plan for your life after work, so you want to look at your retirement planning, we know and appreciate working within the legal segment and the legal profession that you may have different pension pots as you move around your career. We can also look at those and provide advice on whether it's better to, depending on the type of pension scheme, it's better to put them all into one or whether it's better to leave them. And we can do that work for you as well. And again, no obligation, and that advice is free of charge. But again, also then looking at the pension freedoms, whether you want to leave some of your retirement planning to your children, because now you don't have to take it and you can leave it to your relatives if you wish. Okay, we can also help you to understand how much income you need in retirement, what your income's likely to be, what your pensions will be from all of the income streams that you've got, and of course the government and the state pension, and how to close any gaps in national insurance. So for example, if you have had a career break and taken some extended time for maternity leave, we can help you to understand the impact of any national insurance on both your state pension and your company pensions. We can also help you to make sense of your workplace benefits, so income protection, life assurance, critical illness cover and retirement planning. Do you have this through your employer at the moment? What does your contract look like? We can help disseminate all of that and bring you up to speed. And again, I would say those of you that are just starting out in your careers, absolutely really important that you get to grips with what your employer is offering, and is that enough? Have a real look at your contract from the maternity pay that they give. We do find sometimes that firms can be a little bit, how to put it in a professional way, they can just pay slightly less than others. So yeah, just be really important to have a look at that. Clearly as well, those of you that are looking to become partner, we can help you with your partnership journey, so partner equity loans, partnership protection, succession planning. And again, those of you that are working within firms and are employing people, we can help you with key person insurance, VAT, tax funding, IT asset management and commercial mortgages. And clearly at the moment we're working with many who are looking to support their staff with the furlough scheme and also their funding and current tax and cash flow. Okay, our customers say very positive things about us. So on the presentation that we send, you'll see the testimonial. But you know, as I said, I've got male financial consultants, I've got female financial consultants. Both of them or all of them are trained in empathising and understanding. Okay, as I mentioned, strategic partner with the Law Society, and they endorse us for income protection, mortgage protection, critical illness cover and life insurance. So again, they see the real value in those products and plans that we have in place. Okay, so just bringing to a close now, in terms of why financial planning is a good idea. Obviously, as I mentioned, it just helps you to define those realistic financial goals. It helps you to measure your progress, helps you to find new ways to maximise your money. More importantly, something that we all want to do is help us to protect you and your family. Okay. Wesleyan provides advice in all aspects of financial planning. There isn't anything that we can't do for you. Clearly, we offer, as I said, no obligation financial review, and that would generally be the next step. You sit down, have a conversation with somebody, discuss your financial goals, receive that financial advice. It's up to you if you take our advice. We will put you in an informed decision. If you say, yes, I want to proceed with your recommendations, that's your decision. There is no obligation from us, but we would say, let us offer you this financial health check just to make sure that you're up to speed, and then provide that ongoing support and help you to make the most of your money between now and the end of your career and onwards. So I think for me, well, we'll come on to income protection in a moment, but the three things I would say is absolutely, when it comes to financial planning, is give yourself choice. It's, for me, financial advice is all about having choice. Financial advice also, I think if we think about it, we'll take our car for an MOT every year. We hopefully are all up to date with our smears that we need to have. We also should be up to date with our sort of home and contents insurance and reviewing that. But actually, are we taking part and having this financial health check on an annual basis? So absolutely think having an annual financial review with all of the other things that we need to do on an annual basis is absolutely key. So it's keeping yourself choice, it's having the financial health check, and obviously it's just taking that advice. I think if we link to income protection is something that Wesleyan actually, well, it's how we started. So as I said, back in 1841, a group of GPs got together, pulled some of their money, so if one of them was sick, they could basically pay themselves and cover their income. So from that little acorn, obviously Wesleyan has grown into, a really financially strong, great financial organisation. We will work with you with income protection to cover off what any existing benefits you've got. So we'll look at your contract, we'll look at any sick pay you've got, and then we look to cover any gaps. So let's say, for example, if you're self-employed, you haven't got any sick pay, you would start the income protection at the shortest possible deferred period. And then we'd work with you to say, well, actually, are you likely to have any income coming in for 3 months, any fees that you're due? Do you want to start at 0 weeks, or do you want to start at 3 months or 6 months? If you're employed, then we'll work within your contract. That will then be designed to pay until your state retirement age or your chosen retirement age. So if you went off sick and you had an income protection plan in place, that would be designed to cover you up to 80% of your income after your pension contributions, to allow you to continue to take the time to get well. So we know, obviously, the worst thing when you go off sick is having to have that real stress and panic that you've got to get back to work because you need to earn the money. So we will work with you and we will say, well, okay, if you're off sick, take the time and have the income protection paid out. We then, when you go back to work, will allow you to have a phased return. So let's say, for example, you can't go back at your full capacity because you've had an illness and you can't go from 0 to 150% overnight. If you then go back on a phased return, we would give you the difference. So you can just take that time to get back to work. And clearly, if you then went off again, we would look to provide that additional support. So I think at the moment you'll see lots of stuff on the news around pension transfers, people being sort of these pension sharks that are taking people's pension pots and everything. So it's really important, if you're looking at that you take the right advice first. Wesleyan has quite a, how can I say, quite a conservative view on pension transfers. Simply because it's your retirement planning. So any recommendations we make, we want to make sure that they're going to be beneficial to you further down the line. If you have company pension schemes and they are what are called defined contribution, e.g. they're pension schemes, then generally we would talk to you about those and just look at whether you can switch those across into one scheme with your current employer. We will never look to switch those out, and we won't recommend, because sometimes they can be old final salary pension schemes, can have very, very good levels of benefits in them. But of course, we can look at that and give you that advice. We can also help you to get the up-to-date statements so you know what your retirement is likely to be from those pension pots and help you to consolidate, to get an understanding. If you have personal pensions, then they obviously are a little bit more flexible, and absolutely we will do that research. So we would look at who your personal pension is with, what the fund performance is like, what the charges are like on that scheme, what the whether you've got any guaranteed rates in there, and what the options are. And then we would look to make some recommendations to consolidate those into one if it's deemed to be to make financial sense. So in a word, to answer your question, yes, we will look at it. Yes, we have the facility, but we will only ever recommend if it's the right thing for you to do. But we can certainly put you in an informed position to help you understand what your retirement income is likely to be. Well, now is the right time. So if you haven't already done it, then clearly now is the time to start. So there is never, the present is now. I would say you need to have, sit down with somebody and have that conversation. Somebody who's going to take the time to understand, what are you saving for? If you're looking at investing, we would recommend and we would want you to at least be looking at investing for the longer term, because clearly that's how you make the better levels of growth. You'll be watching the FTSE at the moment. Clearly now is a good time to invest, but you wouldn't have invested yesterday and take your money out today, because potentially you'd lose money. So you'd look to invest for the longer term. But we will work with you to find out, what is it you are saving for? So if you are saving for your retirement, then clearly we'd look at pension planning, which is part of an investment. If you're looking at saving for, a large birthday, a large holiday, children's education fees, then clearly we'd look at providing the advice there. But we also, when we're looking at this, is factor in your attitude to risk, so your appetite for risk. And your understanding of investments as well. We would absolutely want to just sit down with you and do that work to make sure that you had the understanding before you put pen to paper. But now is the time to do it if you haven't already. Absolutely. So I think, as with anything, when you start your career, you get used to the money that you earn, and you will live to your means and you will spend money. So if when you first start out in your career, you don't join your company pension scheme, you will have that money in your bank and you will spend it. It then becomes quite difficult because you actually then have to almost give the money away. But if you consider saving every time you get a pay rise, every time you get a promotion, every time you start a new job, or new, in a new firm or wherever it might be, then clearly you're not having that money in your bank, and therefore it's going out before you see it. So we would, strongly recommend, when you're first starting out, that you do join. And then if you haven't already at the moment, then we would just, I think from my perspective, it's saying, okay, it might feel like £100 a month, £200 a month, whatever it is, going out of your money. But if you are seeing that as that's my 40th birthday fund, that's my retirement fund, that's my wedding fund, children to university fund, it then becomes tangible and you're saving for something and you can see the end result, then it's easier. But to answer your question, Sally, absolutely, pension planning, you need to give your pension planning and retirement planning time to grow. Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said before, we would sit down with you and look at how we work is we would sit down and we would look at working out with you what's called a lifeline. So we look at your career, we look at that short, medium, long term. What are your plans? We would then look at property. Where are you a homeowner? Are you renting? Do you want to rent? What are your short, medium, long term plans for that? Family, and then any hobbies. Or hobbies or pastimes or things you enjoy. So we would then factor in. So if we know within 5 years' time you want to be an executive coach and you needed to have spent £10,000 to get there, then clearly we would build that into the plan before we then started saying, actually, we now need to start investing for the longer term on other things. So we would absolutely work with you to realise those goals over a period of time. The other thing that's fundamental is making sure that you have an emergency fund in place. So we would also talk to you about any existing funds that you have to make sure that if you need any money in an emergency, you have that. And that's it in a nutshell, Sally. Thank you. Great. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
So lovely to see you all. I would encourage you to take advantage of having the chat with Wesleyan, which we always do for members.
Thank you all.
Thank you. See you tonight.